from Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Treestands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 AM and FM stations across the great state of Michigan. I'm here every week. I have been for a long time. God willing, I will be here for a long time into the future, and I am so glad to have you along with us. Whether you are a hardcore outdoor person, if you're a hardcore hunter or angler or shooter or trapper, you know what this show is about. But even if you're not, and I hear from people routinely on a regular basis who say, Mike, I don't really hunt or fish, but I do enjoy the topics you bring up. I enjoy your guests. And to me, that is the highest compliment I can get. That somebody is not steeped in this outdoor lifestyle like you or I are, but they still listen to the show. I love that. I appreciate that. Again, thank you very, very much. I do talk about hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues and some wild game cooking. We wrap up almost every show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, as we will this week again. Oh, what has happened this last week since we talked? It's been an interesting week from a PR perspective. During the week, I'm fairly active on social media, and I don't. Maybe it's not something I'm really proud of or something I love, but it's something that I have to do. It has become, for better or worse, a big part of my job these days. I do radio, I do podcasting, and I do social media. I love social media and I hate social media. I love social media because we can reach a lot of people. Like, from my perspective, it doesn't cost me a dime. You know, where else could I reach? When I had the TV show, it cost me a lot of money to keep that thing on the air. There is some expense to the radio show as well, but social media doesn't cost me anything. So I look at it as a free venue to promote hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. So I like that aspect of it. What I don't like is a lot of times it tends to bring out the worst in people. And I don't know why that is. And I don't know if it is worse in our outdoor community than other communities, because I'm not involved in those other communities. I am involved in the outdoor community. Hunters, anglers, shooters, trappers. That's the world I live in, so that's the world I am most familiar with. Maybe it's the same thing in the online boating world, in the online golf world. You know, whatever your hobby, whatever your lifestyle is, maybe if you were to go online, there would be haters and shamers there as well. I don't know. But I'm just fed up to my eyeballs in how we, as hunters and anglers, tend to want to destroy each other. I'll give you an example here in a minute, but what does it matter to you as an individual hunter or angler? What does it matter to you what a fellow hunter or angler does, as long as it's legal? How do their activities negatively affect you? The answer to that is they don't. Well, since it doesn't negatively affect you, then why would you take the opportunity to attack somebody online, demean them, try to diminish them, shame them, hate on them for doing something that is legal and biologically sound. And here's the most recent example of this. There were a couple of Michigan hunters who went up to White River, Ontario, Canada, an area that I absolutely love. I love the countryside up there. I love the wildlife there, and I love the people there. Well, a couple of these Michigan hunters went to White River on a wolf hunt. Hunting wolves in Ontario is legal, and the Ontario Ministry says it's biologically sound and it's biologically necessary. And if you go into a town like White River, you'll know what I mean. Wolves routinely come into the edge of town there, skirt around the edge of town there, and love them or hate them. I think you can all agree you don't want wolves wandering through a town like White River, Ontario. So there is a regulated wolf hunt to control their numbers. Now, I get it. If you don't like the concept of wolf hunting, okay, I accept that. I personally have done it. So going back to the story here, I posted pictures of those guys and then a follow-up video that they had done. And then I posted video of a hunt that I did in White River 10 years ago. And I said, hey, as long as we're on the topic of wolves, here's a hunt that I did 10 years ago. Which was actually pretty painful to watch because I was about 100 pounds heavier and I looked like a blimp. But that's a different story. But the comments, the negative comments that came up were disgusting. Not just from anti-hunters. I expect those. In fact, I somewhat enjoy those comments. But the negative and demeaning and hurtful and mean comments from so-called fellow hunters, including one guy who claimed to be America's most experienced outdoorsman, got on there bloviating and talking about how we didn't understand wildlife management, and if we stayed out of it, that Mother Nature would take care of itself, and all you're trying to do is make yourself more of a man by killing a wolf. Man, oh man, oh man. If you don't like wolf hunting in an area where it's legal, don't do it. Don't pay the money. Don't make the drive. Don't stay out there in the cold. Don't suffer. Don't walk through 4 feet of snow, and don't do it. But getting online and griping about it and demeaning fellow legal hunters for doing it doesn't help the cause. It doesn't make us as hunters look any stronger, any brighter. It doesn't make us look like the stewards of the land that we are, of the resources that we are. And you might say, well, wolf hunting, Avery, that's kind of an obscure topic. Okay, let's bring it closer to home. Right now, springtime in Michigan. And you'll see this on the fishing forums. Anglers go down to Lake Erie or St. Clair River or Detroit River, and they catch these huge, beautiful, double-digit, spawn-filled female walleye, and they might choose to keep some of them. The haters come out of the woodwork and say, well, that's not biologically sound. You're hurting the resource. How could you possibly do that? But when you look at the biology behind it, in fisheries like the St. Clair River, the Detroit River, Lake Erie, it is biologically okay to take a few of those fish. And if you take that 10-year-old 10-pound fish and you think about the eggs that she's laid over the past decade, she has done her part to contribute to the resource. So biologically, it's okay. Now, if you tried to do the same thing in a northern Michigan lake, it wouldn't make sense, right? So you've got to look at the area. You've got to look at the fishery. But the people who get shamed and hated on for keeping some big fish in a resource like Lake Erie or the Detroit River that can well support that harvest, and they get attacked, criticized by people who claim to be fellow hunters and anglers, but who obviously have no concept of sound, scientific, wildlife, or fisheries management issues. So what do? They jump online. They try to make themselves look bigger by tearing down fellow outdoors men and women. I say stop it. Enough is enough. You make yourself look foolish, and you make us as a hunting community look weak and uneducated. Hunt your hunt. Enjoy your fishing adventure. But please don't try to diminish somebody else's legal outdoor activities. Okay, you hear this now? This is me putting the soapbox away, folding it up, and putting it behind me. But it'll probably come out again sometime in the future. Coming up here on the Outdoor Magazine show after the break, Jason Graham of Linwood Beach Marina talking about getting your boat out of storage and ready for the first day on the water. We might talk a little Saginaw Bay walleye fishing as well. Then Tom Andris of the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative. What's the outlook? What's it look like for salmon fishing on the Great Lakes this year? In hour number 2, we're talking one of my favorite topics, bow hunting for turkeys with Charlie Wiltse. Nick Green of MUCC checks in, and we'll continue on the talkin' turkey topic in hour number 3 with Greg Abbas, the finer points of calling in birds, and then wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar with another great recipe. All coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK. That's 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS 1320 AM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground program. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's MUCC.org. It's MUCC.org. And by the way, you can save 25% if you sign up to be an MUCC member. Use the promo code Mike, all caps, MIKE, and save 25% at MUCC.org. While you're online, head on over to LinwoodBeachMarina.com. LinwoodBeachMarina.com, obviously, the website of the Linwood Beach Marina on the west side of Saginaw Bay. I say it can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination, your mid-Michigan tracker, and Angler Quest headquarters. Jason Graham with MUCC, with Linwood Beach Marina, also a charter captain as well, with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Jason, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are things at Linwood Beach? You guys fishing open water yet, or what's the status?
We're right there at that verge. The chunk ice out in the middle of the bay keeps going back and forth with the wind direction. The marina is now ice-free. Had a few chunks of ice here the last couple of days, but it's not too bad. You can get boats in and out. But the big chunk ice is still going back and forth with the wind direction. So as long as you watch the wind, we can get boats in the water now, and it's fishable. So,
all right. So let me ask you this: for most people, the boat has been in storage for several months, if not longer now. What's the process of getting your boat out of storage and ready for the water? What do we want to keep in mind? Because there's nothing worse, Jason, and you've seen this and I have, getting to the boat, getting to the launch, you go to fire up your rig, it doesn't start, and everybody's looking at you and they're not real happy.
Absolutely. A lot of preparation. And the biggest thing I stress is a lot of this stuff can be taken care of at home, even before you get to the boat ramp. Checking your air pressure in your tires in your trailer, checking your wheel bearings, make sure your tires aren't loose, putting fresh gas in are the few simple things you can take care of even before that episode would happen at the boat ramp. Fresh gas is probably the biggest thing. Stable is good, but that fresh gas in an engine, it fires better, it runs smoother, and it gets you on your way. Right out of the gate, and enjoy your day that way and not be stressed out as you're putting the boat in the water for the first time.
Put muffs on that outboard, start it up in the driveway.
Absolutely. Some of the outboards now have a port on the side. Actually, hook the hose direct to it on the side of the motor. You don't have to have muffs anymore on some of these motors. But the older stuff, put the muffs on, run that motor, fire it up, check your batteries, make sure your batteries are charged. That's probably the number one thing of guys is when they pull them out of the winter storage, out of cold storage somewhere, the batteries are low. Make sure you charge them batteries too. We're doing a good overnight charge, and your trolling motor batteries and your cranking battery as well.
Charge the batteries, fresh gas, start it in the driveway, the pole barn to make sure it's running. And I'm glad, Jason, that you brought up the idea of a trailer. Most boats, I don't care how much you use them, most boats spend more time on the trailer than they do on the water. So that trailer is a big deal.
Absolutely. And the cold air, the cold temperatures in your barn, you actually lose some air pressure in your tires over the winter months, and the wheel bearings too. I've had this deal where I say to all my customers, it's a whole lot easier to change these parts in your driveway next to your garage where your tools are instead of watching the traffic go by 80 miles an hour on I-75 because you have a wheel fall off or a wheel bearing go bad or tire pressure. That stuff can be prevented 99% of the time at home. Yeah, once in a while it happens, a wheel bearing will cut loose, but for the most part, it can be corrected at home even before you leave the dock or leave the driveway.
Yeah, I hear you. Every time I see a boat, a truck with a boat trailer behind it pulled over on the side of the freeway, first thing it is, I feel terrible for those people. And secondly, I'm wondering, man, could this have been prevented?
That is correct.
All right, so simple tips on getting the boat ready, getting the boat back on the water. Let's talk a little bit more about this early season fishing. For example, your home water, my home water, our beloved Saginaw Bay. First of all, Jason, are you gonna head down to Lake Erie or Detroit River and take advantage of some of that fishing down there?
I can, but I choose to stay close. The fishing's here. I have a saying I go by, don't leave fish to find fish. It's very crowded at some of the boat ramps down in Erie and Detroit River as well. And I'm not going to put my customers through that, as far as trying to find a parking spot and that kind of thing, waiting traffic, waiting lines. Right here in Saginaw Bay, the fishing is just as good as far as I'm concerned. And it's a free-for-all. There's lots of boat ramps open. There's a lot of people that stay close to home and fish as well. But Linwood Beach has plenty of parking. Even the DNR ramp at the mouth of the river, there's lots of parking for all of us. And we can benefit from the fishery that we have right here close to home and not drive the 2, 3, 4 hours, to do the same kind of fishing and play bumper boats with guys from out of the area as well. So
don't leave fish to find fish. That is something my dad tried to pound in my head for years. But sometimes, even on a day I'm trolling on Saginaw Bay, sometimes I find myself, what are they doing over there? Don't leave fish to find fish. Words to live by, Jason.
Absolutely.
All right, so are you, we talk about drifting and jigging the Detroit River. This year, the Saginaw River did close for a so-called spawning closure. Maybe next year it'll be open. Is that something you're going to concentrate on? Are you going to take your clients up in there, or are you going to stay out in the bay?
I will do both. I'll let my customers decide what they want to do. If they want to do the jigging like the Detroit River guys do, absolutely. I'll take them in the river and do some jigging as well. Some customers prefer that. Some customers just prefer catching fish. If we can catch fish, trolling for me is more controlled, where I'm actually run all the lines. I can run 15 rods and not have any problems. If I'm trying to teach somebody to jig, you got to keep in mind the bite's going to be different. And if like I said, if they want to learn how to jig, absolutely, I'll teach anybody that wants to do it. But as far as customers just want to go out and catch fish and have a good time, trolling is definitely the way to go.
And for you, trolling, it's like a science. It's like an art for you, isn't it?
It is. I'm one of the finest detailed fishermen over here that everybody tells me that I am anyway. I get right down to the swivel and the line size and the snap size, and I'm very detailed as far as hook orientation and tuning baits. But if I can go out and catch my limit of fish or have a good time in 3 hours versus 5, my customers are happy. That's more time for me to do something else, either with more customers or free time for myself.
So how is this early season trolling bite on Saginaw Bay different than what so many people would experience, say, last summer in a midsummer fishery, Jason?
The summer fishery, the water's warm. These fish are more active. They're moving faster. You want to troll faster. In the late fall and the early spring like this, the fish are, the metabolism is a lot slower. They want to use a bigger bait, and they want to eat fewer times a day. So I use a bigger crankbait, and I go slower. A lot of times it's 0.8 to 1 mile an hour, 1.2 at the most, and you get that bait down right in the fish's face, and it basically forces them. It's a force feed bite's what it is. Sometimes the color makes a difference, but a lot of time it's the action, and a bait goes by their face, and they just a reaction bite. They got to eat it. So.
Where are you going to find fish this time of year? Are they out in the deep water? Are they dropping back from the rivers? What do you think?
They're multi-staging. You have fish in deep water yet. You have fish the river mouth getting ready to go up to spawn. You have fish in the river already spawning right now. They come up in stages. Not all the fish do the same thing at the same time. So when you're out in deep water, let's say you're out in 25 foot of water and catching them, there's also fish in 12 to 15 feet at the mouth of the river or in the reefs getting ready to spawn. And those fish are getting ready up the river. There's also fish coming out of the river post-spawn, and they're looking for a big meal too. So you kind of get best of both worlds in that, 12 to 25 foot range. You're getting pre-spawn, post-spawn fish at the same time.
And not all the fish on the bay run the river to spawn, do they?
That's correct. That is correct. Some of the fish will do the reefs and the shallow waters. Some of them actually do in the deep water, the rock piles and stuff as well. They won't use the river. That is correct.
You talk about reefs, and this is something I don't hear about lately, and this is on the opposite side of the bay from where you are out of Linwood Beach. But does that man-made reef, is anything ever happening out there anymore? I don't hear anything about it. It's a new product out there for the bay. The fish are acclimated to it. The gobies are there. The perch are there. The bait fish are around that. There is some fish there. As far as a reef, it's a great structure to go fish. A lot of guys, what they're finding is they go out and cast on it. The reef isn't really that big as far as a trolling process around it. You can troll around it and get a good process and good, but it's not big enough to get 4 or 5 boats and do the same thing. It's a little crowded. Okay.
But a lot of guys are going across it and casting the edges. The bass guys have found with the smallmouth relating to it as well. So there's a lot of activity out there, but it's not big enough to have 10 or 15 boats doing the same thing without somebody getting in, a yellow match because you're cutting somebody off.
Yep,
so.
I got you. The concept of casting. To me, that's fascinating. It's not an effective or productive way for you as a captain with clients on board, but man, it sure would be fun.
It is. It is a blast. You get that right procedure, that right rock pile or that right little weed line, and you can cast at it and catch those fish. And it's a lot of the bigger fish. A lot of the tournament guys, that's what they're going to out here now. It's almost a bass application. They're casting a Pacific structure or rock or reef or something that's holding the gobies, holding the bait fish. They're casting that presentation into it and then catching the bigger fish for tournament-wise conditions, not just limits or keeper fish for eating.
You talk about big fish. In my mind, because I'm primarily a summertime Saginaw Bay angler, I'm not used to seeing big fish on Saginaw Bay. A whole bunch of eaters. Occasionally we'll run into a big fish. When you talk about big fish this time of year, Jason, are you talking like Detroit River size fish, Lake Erie fish, or are we still behind the ball there?
We're still behind, but this last year's ice season was phenomenal. Numerous fish over 10 pounds being caught. Just like the Erie guys, they catch them this time of year in the spring. There was a 14.5 pounder caught through the ice, through Frank's Great Outdoors, the Winter Frenzy. Just a monster fish, and you have over a 10 pounder to be in the top 4 every week. So there was numerous fish over 10 pounds caught. The fishery it's phenomenal. What the DNR is saying now is there's more fish in the bay than there's ever been as far as walleye. So it's the time to catch them. Spring is good. Last year we had an issue where the water was super clean.
Oh,
it was
my
real
goodness.
clear.
Yes, that drove me crazy.
And a lot of guys struggled. But when you found the fish, when you got the presentation right, they were still active fish. You gotta do what you need to do to find these fish and make them bite. So one thing I do on my situation is I run braided line. With a braided line that I run, the bait gets deeper with less line out, and it also gives a little more different cadence to the bait as well. So these bandits I'm running this time of year when the water's cold, the bait has a little bit different cadence to it, a little bit different rattle than with monofilament. It also gets down deeper faster. So.
Well, the website for Linwood Beach Marina is linwoodbeachmarina.com. What about your charter service, Jason? Where do we find you?
I'm on Facebook. Send It Charters, Captain Jason Graham, but Send It Charters is my Facebook page.
Send It Charters, Jason Graham, and the website for Linwood Beach is linwoodbeachmarina.com. Jason, always a pleasure. Good fishing to you, and I'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike. All
right. Jason Graham of Linwood Beach Marina talking about this early season fishery on Saginaw Bay. Also talking about getting your boat out of storage. It's not a complicated process, but there are a few things you want to keep in mind because the last thing in the world you want to do is be all jazzed up, call your buddies, be excited, drive to the boat launch, go to start your boat, and boom, it doesn't start. Talk about frustration. We've all seen it. We've all been there. We've all done it. Been there, done that, right? But let's not do it again. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll change from gold-colored fish to silver fish with Tom Andris of the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Traverse City on WTCM. That's 580 AM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM and 106.9 FM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Marquette, WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Michigan-based, family-owned VersaSkins. You know I love that. The website, versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. High-quality, well-made hunting clothes. And you can change the camo pattern by snapping on and zipping on a new outer shell. Blaze orange, fall camo, spring camo, snow camo. VersaSkins has you covered, literally. Versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. While you are online, of course, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Still thinking about tweaking it a little bit, updating it a little bit. It's still a fine website, I think. There's plenty of information on there, but I'd like to jazz it up a little bit. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And head on over to glsalmon.org. That's the website of the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative. Tom Andris with that group with me now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Tom, welcome back. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. Doing great. Springtime in Michigan. A week and a half ago, I was down trolling for coho in St. Joe in 70-degree weather, and 2 days ago it was 17 degrees in the morning, and now we're dealing with ice, right?
There you go. Springtime in Michigan. But listen, I want to talk about that. I didn't know you were down in St. Joe trolling for coho. That must have been a fun trip.
Oh, yeah. It's great. You know, it's that coho fishery in the spring down in the south end of the lake is a lot of fun and some of the best eating you can ever run into. So,
oh, and the fish become suicidal, don't they?
They can be, for sure. You know, it definitely helps to have a variety of baits out there to kind of figure out what they're biting on. This time we found out for some reason antifreeze was hot that day, and I have never run an antifreeze bait for coho, so that was the deal of the day.
I don't think I have an antifreeze covered bait in my boat.
Oh, that's the hot color for walleye and Saginaw Bay, so I wouldn't be without that one.
Well, maybe I gotta look up antifreeze and see what color that is. Maybe I do have some. Hey, listen, speaking of baits and lines, I want to talk briefly about a topic you and I have discussed before. And this is a campaign. This is a crusade I've been on. I would like to see Great Lakes trolling anglers not have a rod restriction a limit. I think you should be able to run as many rods as you can because the fishery is going to be protected by the size limit and the creel limit. And this is something you guys at the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative are kind of kicking around as well.
Yep, that's right. We've been looking at it for about 2.5 years now. 3 years ago, excuse me, we brought that up and said, you know what, we agree with what you're saying. The difficulty that we were running into, or that we felt we'd run into, was that sort of rule change has to go through the legislature. So we tried to figure out a way to have the legislature want to do that other than just helping out the fishermen. And we came up with the idea of being able to purchase a separate license for the same cost as your regular license for $26. And that license would allow a person to fish with 3 extra lines in the Great Lakes or any of the connecting waters of the Great Lakes.
Actually, I love that idea. From a purely clean perspective, I just soon get rid of it all. But I like your idea. $26. You know, that's not a lot of money. The legislature would seemingly want to get behind that. You know, I'm in with you on that, Tom. But I know you got some other things in the fire right now too.
That's right. When we started looking to other clubs, you know, it's always good to have as much backup as you can when you go to the legislature. some of those clubs are involved in the decree negotiations, and they had asked us, let's hold off on this right now. Any change can be considered in negotiations, so you really don't want to mess around with it. We agreed. We think that's the most important thing going on in the Great Lakes right now, at least the upper Great Lakes of Michigan. And so we kind of put the system on hold, but it's been 2.5 years, even more than that, and they just extended negotiations into June 30th of this year.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and I agree that that's extremely important. But I'm not. I think what I want to do is I support you guys completely, but I think as a way of keeping going here, I think I want to testify before the NRC and keep pushing this along. And I want to work with you guys, but let's see where this all takes us, while still being responsible to the fishery and not getting in the way of gumming up something else.
I agree with you. If you can find a way to do that, I'd be happy to help.
Well, I appreciate that. Listen, I got to take a break here in just a minute, but I want to talk more with you, Tom, about the outlook for salmon fishing on the Great Lakes this season. But the gist of it is it's looking pretty good, isn't it?
It's definitely looking better than it has been, Mike.
All right, we'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. Continue our conversation with Tom Andris of the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative, the website glsalmon.org. That's glsalmon.org. And as an aside, if you agree with me on this concept of lessening the restriction on Great Lakes trolling anglers, send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'm not talking about pier fishermen. I'm not talking about surf fishermen. I'm not talking about ice anglers. I'm talking about Great Lakes trolling anglers. I think it's ridiculous to have a limit on the number of rods that an angler can run. Your size of your boat, your experience is going to dictate how many rods you can run. The fishery's protected. You've got a daily creel limit, and you got a size limit anyway, so what's it matter? Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. More with Tom Andris coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Alpena on WZTK. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Iron Mountain, WMIQ 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins, Michigan-based, family-owned. You know I love that. I'm sorry, Rapid River Knives, Michigan-based, family-owned Rapid River Knives. In fact, I've got a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. It's no longer in my pocket. I just brought it out to take a look at it. It is absolutely beautiful. It's a piece of art that is designed to be used. Rapid River Knives, handmade by craftsmen in the UP. Folding pocket knives like I have, skinning knives, gutting knives, fillet knives as well. Check out their website, rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us, or better yet, stop by the showroom in Rapid River, and you can see what I mean, rapidriverknifeworks.us. Also, check out the website, glsalmon.org. That's the website of the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative. Tom Andris with that group. Tom, tell me more about this group. What are you guys all about?
Well, we were formed back when they were when the DNR was trying to limit the predator fish in the lakes because the prey was going down, and they were basically only lowering Chinook salmon, which is, the apex predator for fishermen in the Great Lakes. And we wanted a more balanced silver fishery out there to, let's decrease some of the trout, let's decrease some of the lake trout, browns, whatever. Just, I'll always want to go for the kings. And we've just always been involved in trying to promote a balanced silver fishery in the Great Lakes.
I never thought in my lifetime I would see a new state record king. I thought those days were well gone. So what a pleasant surprise. What a great thing it was to see that happen last summer.
Yeah, it was. And that fish was most likely some sort of genetic anomaly, but the fact that it was allowed to grow because of the stabilizing bait fish numbers is kind of a testament of these lakes are getting more in balance compared to what they were when we were stocking way too many fish in the lakes, and we had natural reproduction that we didn't know the scope of it. And that's kind of what happened to Huron. Huron's obviously been building back up and changing bits and pieces, but they were able to step into Lake Michigan and get that in balance. It's been tough, but it seems like we're at that point now, or we're getting closer to it.
Can we expect to see numbers of 30-pound kings this summer?
From what the Great Lakes Fishery Commissions, the studies that they put out for bait fish and predator numbers, it, like I said, it seems like it's stabling out. We most likely will not see the large numbers of large fish that we've seen in the past few years. They'll still be out there, but just not the number. But we will see more fish. So again, trying to balance out the fishery. 5-6 years ago, we had tons of fish that we were catching, and they were all 12, 13 pounds. Well, 2 years ago, we were catching 2 or 3 fish, and they were all in the high 20s. So we're trying to get into a balance there, and we're getting closer than we've been in a while.
It is a balancing act. It is a puzzle, like a three-dimensional chess game, and you can't overlook bait fish, right? I mean, the bait fish, the forage base, that's the building block of this all.
And that's what it is. And it even goes down further than that, Mike. Just think of how much less phosphorus we're putting in the lakes compared to what we used to, just knowing the environmental impacts of that. So that cuts down on the nutrients that are going into the lake, and then the quagga mussels that have basically taken over the lake as far as biomass, and they trap all those nutrients in close to shore so that a lot of that nutrient doesn't get offshore to feed the zooplankton that feed those prey fish. Yeah. So that's been affecting our numbers. And like I said, a complete balancing act that we didn't have to pay attention to 10, 15 years ago. And now we're learning to do it better.
Yeah, good points, Tom. Overall, though, it sounds to me like you're cautiously or even openly optimistic about the fishery coming up at least this summer.
Yep, no question. The last 3 years, the different states around Lake Michigan, they're now planning 2.4 million kings into the lake, and it's the numbers are going up. The weights are stabilizing out. The bait fish are going up. So, hey, Mike, I wanted to bring up one thing about the rod rule.
Yeah, please.
I thought was kind of an interesting comparison. If you go out on the boat with 3 guys and you're running 9 rods and you've caught 10 walleye, are you taking 3 rods away from your spread at that point?
Nope.
I don't know anybody that does that, right?
Nope.
But legally, you should, right?
Well, let me think about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. See this, and we're running out of time here, Tom. But that's the type of thing that drives me crazy. I think it's for one thing, game wardens don't want to go out there and count your rods, right? They don't care. I know a lot of them. It's like there's one more thing for them to worry about, and it's like this is an egregious over imposition into Great Lakes trolling anglers. I think you and I agree on this. I think we're going to make some progress. I look forward to talking to you again future, and this is something we'll continue to work on. Tom Andris of the Great Lakes Salmon Initiative, the website glsalmon.org, glsalmon.org. And again, let me know what you think about this issue. Send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. We'll take a break for the top of the hour, switch gears completely, talk about another favorite topic of mine, bow hunting for turkeys, with Charlie Wiltse coming up in hour number 2 of Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Treestands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. You might notice there's a little addition in that introduction, talking about the folks from Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, a new partner of mine here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. Always happy to partner up, especially with new companies, especially Michigan-based companies. You'll be hearing more about them. Very excited to learn more about those guys. So listen, this is the Outdoor Magazine Radio Show. It is heard on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And I think the best way to listen to this show, if you can, is on your local radio station. You get your local news and weather and sports, your local commercials. Maybe there's something you want to take advantage of. Maybe there's a sale at the local gun store, the local hardware store. But if you can't listen to the broadcast version of the radio show, isn't it nice to know that there is a podcast available? It's the same content, same show. It's just made available somewhere other than on your local radio station. Everybody's got podcasts these days. I think they're great. I have a podcast, and you can hear it everywhere. You can hear it on my website, the Facebook page, Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, everywhere. Anywhere you can hear a podcast, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine Radio Show. But I also do some other podcasts as well that are not radio shows, including a monthly podcast for offshore tackle, for Angler Quest boats, for Polar Craft boats, and for Primal Treestands. In fact, Primal Treestands, the most recent podcast, is where I met Charlie Wiltse, and he is featured on the most recent Primal Treestands podcast. You can hear that if you go to their website, primaltreestands.com. That's primaltreestands.com. And I enjoyed that conversation so much, I thought, I'm going to get Charlie back on the radio show, because Charlie likes to talk about some of the same things that I do, including bow hunting for turkeys. Now, turkey season's coming up just around the corner, right? Most people in Michigan will grab a shotgun, the trusty 12 gauge, maybe a 20 gauge, and that's fine. That's great. Anything that gets you out in the doors legally, outdoors legally to have fun, I am all for it. But I really love to bow hunt for turkeys. I've killed quite a few birds, but only a couple of them with a shotgun. I've killed birds with compounds. I've killed birds with a recurve. I've killed birds with a crossbow. This year I'll be back out there with a crossbow. But it's a different ball game. You have to approach it a little bit differently, or maybe in a lot of ways differently than what you would shotgun hunting. Charlie's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk more about this. Charlie, welcome to the show. Listen, I really enjoyed that Primal podcast, and we're getting a good response to that. You did a really good job there.
Well, thanks, Mike, and it's great to be back on the show and talking to you about something that we both truly love and have a lot of passion for.
All right, so let me ask you this. Turkey hunting can be hard enough. Why make it even harder by going after them with a bow?
Well, us archery guys, we have a whole nother season that we can be out in the woods. We can have our bow in our hand. Now since 2020, also here in Michigan, we can be up in an elevated stand, so we can be in our favorite hangars, our favorite ladder stands, and we can be out in the woods, beautiful time of the year, hunting these majestic turkeys with a bow and arrow. There's just nothing better. Just absolutely love it.
I have not hunted birds from a tree stand yet. Charlie, do you know, is that bow only, or can a shotgun hunter use a tree stand as well?
It's both.
It is?
Bow
Okay.
or gun. Yep, this came into effect, spring of 20 was when it first came into effect for Michigan. And it's a game changer if you love being up in the air, which most of us archery guys do. It's just a ton of fun.
I want to talk more about that here later in the conversation, but first of all, let's start out talking about hunting from the ground. And I think if you're going to hunt birds from the ground with a bow, I think a blind is almost a necessity, isn't it?
It really is. Basically for me being a huge fan of Primal Treestands, using their products, working with Primal. I will use a Primal ground blind, the Wraith 270, which is just a fabulous ground blind, been out for a couple years. And we have a number of different blinds, but also our warm weather blind, the Breeze. And, this gives you that concealment, Mike, that you need, especially with using a bow. We all know there's a lot more movement. And you need to be concealed. We know the vision of these turkeys is just amazing. So being in a ground blind, you've got that concealment. And then also the good thing about, turkey hunting with the ground blind, you don't need to be like deer and bear, where you're spending all this time and you got brush in the blind and making sure it's perfect. And you've just got to be able to get that ground blind set up, whether you do enough scouting and where the roost is and you're going to be hunting that roost in that ground blind. Or if you're just carrying it with you in the woods, these new blinds, there's a lot of them, but especially ones from Primal, you can set them up in a matter of seconds, and they're quiet. You got your seat, and you set them up, and you're hunting. So a ground blind is pretty much a must when it comes to hunting from the ground with your bow.
And isn't it crazy, you kind of alluded to this, but isn't it crazy how turkeys will absolutely ignore a brand new blind? I mean, you can take it out of the box, put it up, and 5 minutes later, literally, if you're in a good spot, have birds come by and peck at the blind.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it firsthand over springtime last year. I was scouting early, had a green field that, green was starting to come up, ground temperature was right. And I literally had a group of hens literally almost run into me. I just set up my Wraith 270 right on the side of the field, so I wanted to do a good afternoon and then some mornings of scouting from it. Yeah, they didn't even know it was there, and it just works out perfect.
And these new blinds, when the industry first came out with the concept of see-through blinds a few years ago, I fell in love with them. And then when Primal came out with that Wraith and brought the price tag way down, I was like, this is the way to go. Because that's always been the knock, Charlie, on ground blinds is you don't have the visibility. But with these see-through blinds, you do have the visibility, yet you're still concealed. So I think for bow hunting, for turkeys in the springtime, it's the perfect setup.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, especially since Primal came out with that Wraith, they cut the price in half of some of these, 360 see-through blinds, and you don't hardly have any obstructions. Easy setup, the price is right. It's the way to go.
Do you use decoys?
Yes. Yep. Depending upon the season. Of course, early in the season, that first week or two, and you've got to just kind of go with, of course, how you're seeing the birds react. And of course, you're going to hear from me, scouting. The more you can scout, the more successful you're going to be, the more you're going to enjoy being out turkey hunting in the spring. But I'd like to start my early hunts off basically with Jake, full strut, quarter strut, and then I'll have a sitting down hen and a standing hen. Because remember, early season, them birds are still, more flocked together. Then as the season goes on, those flocks get smaller. So if you can manipulate a little larger flock that early season, especially if you got a Jake, like I said, full strut, quarter strut, that's a deadly combination.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking about this, Charlie, you're putting a whole flock out in front of you, but then you said, yes, I am doing that.
Right. Early season, you gotta play it by ear, because we all know, those flocks get smaller and smaller as especially here in Michigan. We start in April and you get into May, it gets smaller and smaller. So,
when you're bow hunting, how far in front of the blind are you putting those deeks?
Well, I'm typically around 15 yards, sometimes maybe 20, depending upon the setup, what type of terrain I have in front of me, if I'm, hunting in the woods, if I'm hunting over a field line. But with the archery hunting, with the turkeys, you have such a small kill zone, you got to shoot your bow a lot. I shoot my bow, probably 275 to 300 days a year. And sometimes that's just, 1 or 2 arrows at a time. But it's that consistency. And just like with turkey hunting, like I said, there's such a small kill zone. that you really got to be confident where you're going to be placing that arrow. And Mike, we all know when we're out in the woods and we're hunting, big game and birds, turkeys, you're going to get nervous, and you're going, you got to put that in consideration, and you got to stay focused, and you got to keep that turkey close enough that you're 100% confident that your shot placement is going to be where it needs to be to lethally kill that Tom.
I could not agree with you more about the confidence level, and that's why this year, Charlie, I've actually put down my recurve. I loved hunting with a recurve, but I got to the point where I wasn't shooting it enough to have that confidence that you talked about, that I think I owe the critter of a quick, clean, humane killing shot. So I actually picked up a crossbow again, and I have that confidence back. It's not for everybody, but it's for me. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll talk more with Charlie Wiltse about bow hunting for turkeys. You can learn more about Charlie. Go to the Primal Treestands website, primaltreestands.com, and click on the podcast link, and you can hear my conversation with him about bow hunting for birds, much more in depth than we will be able to get into here on the radio show. Charlie Wiltse, primaltreestands.com. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. And you can hear us in Port Huron, WPHM 1380 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. They continue, 76 years later, continue to come up with new products, new manufacturing processes. They continue to innovate and lead the archery industry with accessories, quivers, vanes. They make everything for bows and arrows, pretty much except bows and arrows. Check them out online at boning.com, BOHNING.com, boning.com. As I head into the woods, the turkey woods this spring, with my crossbow, I will have boning products that I'm using to try to take a longbeard. I will be hunting from the ground. I will be hunting in one of my Primal Treestands Wraith 270 see-through blinds. If I'm out there later in the season, in the mosquito season, I might grab one of the breeze blinds, but I'll probably, hopefully, be done by then. I love to bow hunt for turkeys. Charlie Wiltse does as well. He is a Primal Treestands pro staffer, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Charlie, before the break, we were talking a little bit about decoys. I used to go the cheap route. I had those fold-up foam decoys, and I had some success with those. But I had a couple of situations where birds came in, and I knew they looked at my deeks and said, that's not real. So I went to Jay's. I paid the long dollar and got those very realistic Avian X decoys, and I think it made a big difference, Charlie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Jay's has great products. That Avian X is, that's spot on when it comes to, what that bird really looks like. And it is important. Some people, still using the decoys, they fold together and you can put them in your backpack.
Yep.
And from a distance and stuff that, Mike, that's probably going to, work. But once you get them close enough, and we all know close enough that's the time when we really need to, work our magic and do our job. Well, you don't want to be working on putting all that time in, and then, you get them into kill zone and they see one thing wrong, and we do know how good their vision is. They're going to split and hightail out of there faster than you can even pull the trigger.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you really love bow hunting for turkeys from a tree stand. That's something we can do now in Michigan legally, just the last couple of years. I haven't done it yet, Charlie. I've been up in my tree stand in the fall, deer hunting, and had birds walk by, but I haven't targeted turkeys from a tree stand. But I do think that's probably a pretty interesting way to go.
Oh, absolutely. It gives you an advantage, especially with that vision that we all know the turkey has. Now we're up in the air. And that turkey, primarily as they're going throughout their day on their natural patterns, feeding, and they're doing their yelping and clucking and all happy. And if you really would spend some time and watch them, like, they may look up every now and then a little bit, but typically, their head's on the ground. They're not very far off the ground. Their predators are on the ground. So now we're up in the tree. So, we're really, really giving us that advantage of, not getting spotted.
What about the angle, though? I like the fact that when I'm at ground level, I have a good angle on shooting a bird with my bow. What's it like from a tree stand?
It's another thing you got to put into consideration. It definitely, it's challenging. And that's why I also suggest, and I shoot a lot of arrows from a couple different stand sets that I have where I'll, take out a target and shoot. Because you really do have such a small window, and you're going to have that angle. So, I'll actually in early spring, and I actually did it last week. I was up in one of my Primal hangers, the Sky Spy aluminum great stand, and 15 yards out, I put out my decoy, and I have a paper turkey target, and I know exactly where I'm going to shoot on that angle, and I shot about 5-6 arrows, and I'll do that a few more times here before I leave for Nebraska for my first turkey hunt.
Charlie, I'm going to talk a little bit more about where to shoot a turkey with a bow at the end of this hour in this week's Ask Avery segment. But as long as I've got you here too, I mean, you're the expert. Where do you aim on a bird?
Well, you've got that small little area. It's in that upper chest area of a turkey. And what I always tell everybody, and I'm very adamant about this, there's all sorts of pictures online. You can Google it, and it'll show you where that kill zone is on a turkey. And it is so important. You know where that is? Take your cutout, even if you don't have a printout of a turkey to shoot. Imagine that small little area on your target. Just focus on that small area, and every time you release that arrow, every shot's so important, even during practice, visualize that small area on that turkey. Upper chest, like I said, you can Google it. You can see, right online on actual live pictures of birds, they'll show, where you got to put that arrow. And it is so important, Mike.
If I remember right, during the Primal podcast, didn't you tell me you actually take headshots?
I have, yes.
So you're one of those guys.
Again, Mike, archery hunting for me has been a passion, since I was 10 years old. I shoot my bow a lot. I would never take a headshot if I didn't get into that zone. We all know that zone where our legs might be shaking a little bit, but once we get to full draw or once we get that bead on an animal and all of a sudden your body calms down, the shakes are gone. But if I have any of that, if the wind's blowing too hard, all those factors, if it doesn't all align, I would never, ever take a headshot. But if it does, I have before, and I have been successful with it.
I have never had the guts to do it, but to me, the advantage is it's either a dead bird or it's a clean miss.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing that I know we're probably going to talk about, but it'd be a good time would be, our broadheads. Always mechanical when turkey hunting. I would never, ever suggest using a fixed blade broadhead. G5 has a mega meat. The Rage Extreme has a really nice turkey broadhead. So you're getting anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. And like you said, you're going for the head. So it's either gonna be a kill shot or most likely a very clean miss.
Well, even if you're not going for the head, I still like the expandables because you're not worried so much about penetration because you're going to get good penetration on a bird. What I'm worried about is the cutting width. And that's the knock on mechanical. Sometimes you don't get, good penetration or whatever. But on a bird, I'm worried about the cutting width more than anything.
Oh, absolutely. And the majority of shot is you do want that upper chest right in the kill zone, and you want to be using a mechanical broadhead.
Well, the old saying, hit 'em high, watch 'em die. Hit 'em low, watch 'em go. I think there's some truth to that.
Oh, absolutely. That's completely correct.
It took me a while when I first started bow hunting for turkeys to realize just how tough those critters are. I mean, they're like most things in the wild, they are designed to survive, and they want to survive. And so we as hunters have to do everything we can to put them down quickly, humanely, and cleanly.
Absolutely, 100%. That is, it's an amazing thing that we're able to do what we can do in the wild, especially here in Michigan, and have these opportunities. But it's our job to make sure that that animal, that bird we're hunting, we're prepared, we're ready, and when that time comes, we make that right shot. That's going to be that lethal shot. Make it right to everyone.
When you go to Nebraska here now, how is that hunting different than Michigan? Are those Rios, or are they same birds we have here, the Easterns?
Those are going to be Merriams.
Merriams, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I've hunted Kentucky for the last 4 or 5 years. I've never hunted Nebraska. Now Kentucky's Easterns, so I'm super excited to try to shoot my first Merriam. And Nebraska has a lot of birds, and they have a very generous bag limit. I was shocked to see that 3-bird limit.
Really?
But really excited out there. We're going to be in the northern, more of the plain country. Those are the Merriams there that we'll be hunting.
Well, if you're going to be out there in the plains, you're probably going to be in a ground blind as opposed to a tree stand then, right?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. Back we'll be, hopefully get at least a full day of scouting, and then we'll be, running and gunning, and hopefully, of course, find some roosts and hunt off those, but then, just getting aggressive, because we're not going to have a lot of time. But using the ground blind. And then also I wanted to say, Mike, for us archery hunters that are getting into bow hunting, and if you like to get a little more aggressive, there are some different decoys out there, and I'm picking myself one up for this year. Never used it, but for example, this Ultimate Predator, it's a stalking decoy, and it mounts right to your bow, so your sights and your arrow mid-bow is open, and then it mounts all around the front of your bow. It's an actual Tom decoy. And so now you can be using your bow and getting more aggressive and doing some stalking, and that adds a whole nother element to us being able to turkey hunt with archery equipment.
It sure does, because my way of hunting is basically, it's a modified style of deer hunting. I mean, I find an area where there are birds, I set up my wraith, I set up some decoys in front of me, I sit down and wait till I hear a bird, or I get talking to him or whatever. But it's a sit in one spot and let the situation unfold. What you're describing, Charlie, is, hey, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to make it happen.
Oh, absolutely. You want to do your standard morning. If you can find that roost, get there half hour before, couple 100 yards away, you get set up. This is using a bow, so of course, if you're not going to be up in the air, using a ground blind, a Wrath 270, a breeze, and let that morning hunt happen, that early morning. But once the birds are down from the roost, if you weren't successful, if they hit the ground and didn't come towards you, well, now with a bow in hand, I can still get aggressive. Okay, so if I've got enough property where I know kind of the general direction that they've probably been going, I've been able to do some scouting, I know which way they're feeding if I wasn't able to draw them off the roost my way. Well, now I can circle around, hopefully get in front of them. If I don't have time to take my ground blind, if I have this type of concealment like this stalking decoy, now I can wait for them to come right into my lap, So it adds another element of archery turkey hunting.
Well, good luck out there in Nebraska. Good luck here in Michigan. Charlie, I'll be following your adventures online. I know the folks at Primal often post your hunts. That's primaltreestands.com, primaltreestands.com. Charlie, let's stay in touch. I like your way of hunting, and I think I'd like to have you back out here on the show in the future.
Hey, I really appreciate that, Mike. I'd like to just say one more thing about, us turkey hunting here in the spring.
Hey, you got about 15 seconds to do it.
Okay, a lot of people get discouraged. They don't get that morning kill. Don't get discouraged. Don't get discouraged if it takes a couple weeks. Those toms are going to have to get more vocal once those hens hit the nest. They'll get more vocal. They're going to continue to look for hens. Stay there, stay on them, enjoy the springtime.
Charlie Wiltse right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97, 98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in Sandusky on WMIC 660 AM and 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. Earlier in the show, we had Jason Graham of Linwood Beach Marina on to talk about that first trip out when you take the boat out of the barn or get it out of storage and drop it in the water. Some things to keep in mind to make your inaugural splash for the season go better. LinwoodBeachMarina.com. I want to turn our attention now, though, to Michigan United Conservation Club's Michigan's premier outdoor conservation organization. Nick Green is their CIO, their Chief Information Officer. Nick, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Excited to be here.
Hey, always a pleasure. Listen, I don't know what you got in mind, but I want to follow up on something we did a couple of weeks ago. We did a Wednesday night live that had Amy Trotter, your executive director, on. What did you think of that, Nick? Did you think that accomplished what you were hoping to get out of it?
It did. We had a great response from that event. Folks were excited and energized to be able to kind of interact with Amy. And that's where she kind of thrives. She's been our policy leader at MUCC for 12 years and engaging with legislators and being in the hot seat of testimony in front of the NRC in legislative committees. So, that kind of venue for her where it's really a back and forth question and answer, on the spot, really get to cover a whole breadth of topics. I think it was awesome. I hope it's something we can continue to do and that, you're able to expand and do with other folks as well.
Well, Amy she has so much knowledge, so much information. She's so quick on her feet. She's so sharp. Yeah, I think she does excel. And yes, we will certainly do this in the future. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but I think we're scheduled for the next one again in June sometime, eh, Nick?
Yeah, we are looking forward to that, and I would encourage folks to, come with those questions you want to know, those really kind of how policy works or why this is that way or, anything specific to what MUCC does. But, Amy is very good and has been in the policy world a long time in Michigan and can answer a lot of questions right off the top of her head about why things are the way they are, what we would need to do to change them.
Excellent. We will do more in the future. What else is going on, Nick?
Yeah, so right now we're kind of working on our big camp push. So Michigan Outdoors Youth Camp will open its doors here at the end of June for 6 weeks. It's an overnight camp, and we're in the process of hiring folks to work there. So if you or someone has preferably a college-aged person who's looking to get into natural resources, outdoor recreation, parks and rec stuff, they're looking for an internship or a job opportunity this summer, I would encourage them to go to mucccamp.org. And we have, I think, assistant director position, a health officer, a lifeguard position, I believe a kitchen position still available. And then, as always, we're about half full with our campers, so we're always looking to fill our camp slots for 9 to 16-year-olds.
Nick, are these, for the people working there, are these paid positions or are these like unpaid internship type things?
Nope, these are stipend positions, so you're paid a certain amount of dollars a week, depending on what the position is, and then you get room and board for free and meals as well when you're on site, and then it's a drop-off on Sunday, pick-up on Friday.
It seems like a great opportunity for somebody who's looking to get into that field, that's for sure.
It really is. We do everything from paddling, hiking, shooting. Kids get hunter safety certified. We do leave no trace. We do water ecology, watershed stuff. So really, again, a big breadth of conservation, environmental topics we cover. So it's great for both the kids and campers to kind of broaden their skill sets, especially those folks who want to get into the field. MUCC is a great resume builder for conservation in Michigan.
And remind me, did you have to take last summer off, or were you able to do this last year?
Last year we were able to have 1 week of camp. The year before we canceled. And last year it was really a hiring issue. Folks were struggling to hire people, and we're hoping this year that we're kind of out ahead of that and we won't run into those types of issues.
Yeah, well, that's hiring. That's a big question these days. All right, Nick, listen, always appreciate your time. I appreciate what you guys are doing there in Lansing and beyond. I'd send people to the website, MUCC.org, MUCC.org. And when something comes up, Nick, you let us know, all right?
Will do. Thanks much. And that other website is MUCCcamp.org. Thank you, Mike.
MUCCcamp.org, MUCCcamp.org, and the other website, MUCC.org. By the way, if you want to sign up for MUCC to become a member, as I am, and you're signing up for the first time and you want to save 25%, and it's already very inexpensive, but if you want to save 25% more, use the promo code Mike, all caps, M-I-K-E, M-I-K-E, and save 25% on your MUCC membership. By the way, even though if you may have missed that Wednesday night live while we were doing it live with Amy Trotter, it's still out there. You can watch it on my YouTube channel. You can watch it on my Facebook page. Just do a search for Wednesday Night Live, and the screen that'll come up is me on the left and Amy on the right as you're looking at it. And you can click on that and you can listen, and I think you can learn a lot about MUCC and policy and behind-the-scenes stuff in general here in Michigan, MUCC.org. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery segment, following up on a conversation that we had a few minutes ago with Charlie Wiltse about bow hunting for turkeys. And the question is, where do you shoot them? Well, more detail. We'll go more in depth after the break in the Ask Avery segment right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Manistee on WTIQ 95.3 FM, 1490 AM. You can hear us in Manistee on WMLQ 97.7 FM, and just down the road in Muskegon, WKBZ 1090 AM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by the folks at Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this works is this is your opportunity to ask me a question, and maybe it'll end up as part of the show. That's what James Hutter did. I wonder if James is related to Pastor Hutter. James Hutter sent me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. He said, hey, Mike, I know you love, he said I'm going to say love. I know you love to bow hunt for turkeys, and I've heard you say they can be hard to kill with a broadhead. So my question is, where do you aim for the highest percentage shot? And this is following up, too, on what Charlie Wiltse said earlier in the hour. Now, there are some people, very brave, very skilled people, who occasionally will try to take a headshot, will aim for the head with a bow, with a broadhead. That's a good place. If you've got the guts to do it, that's a good shot, because it's either going to be a clean miss or it's going to be a dead bird. I have never had the guts to do that. I said earlier, there's an old saying about, hit them high, watch them die, hit them low, watch them go. Turkeys are surprisingly tough critters to take with a bow, with a broadhead. The kill zone on a turkey is about the size of a golf ball, maybe a little bit higher. And so I do recommend a mechanical broadhead to get as much width as possible. Last year I made a mistake. I appreciate James not bringing this up, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Last year when I was hunting with a recurve, I had always been told that a high percentage shot on a bird is what's called a Texas heart shot. And what that is basically is you wait till the bird is facing away and you shoot it where the sun don't shine. Always. I had always been told this. I had always read this. I was convinced that I was working on good, sound knowledge that when I had a bird in my lap with that recurve, he was about 7 yards away, and I held off taking a broadside shot. I held off taking a shot while he was looking at me. I waited till he was in full strut and turned away. And so I've got the back of the bird facing me. And picture a bird here where those tail feathers all come together. That's where I shot him. It's called a Texas heart shot. I didn't get that bird. And it made me sick. So I sent that, and this is all on video. So I sent this video off to a guy named Al Stewart. No, not the Al Stewart who used to sing The Year of the Cat. The Al Stewart, who for 50 years plus was a DNR wildlife biologist and one of the top turkey hunting experts in the country. And here's Al's response to me. He said, Mike, after viewing that footage, unfortunately, I have to say that the shot you took is a very low percentage shot. The Texas heart shot is rarely a good shot, although there are some folks that say that they like the shot. The reality is that there are many more birds crippled to die later than recovered. Al says, to me, the best shot with a bow remains to be a headshot. Yes, if you miss, you miss. If you hit, you've got a dead bird. He said, again, the kill zone for a turkey is the size of a baseball. He says the next best shot is near the base of the wing butt. That's where the wing attaches to the body. And again, if you look at the diagrams online, there are a lot of them out there. You can see where the vitals are and you can see what you're trying to hit. Where the wing attaches to the body is slightly higher in the body cavity than just center mass. I have killed turkeys shooting them with a bow by hitting them center mass, but if you're a little bit higher, you're better off. But I learned the hard way about this old Texas heart shot that it is not the way to go. The main thing is to have confidence and practice. Use a good broadhead. I'm going to be using the expandable, the Michigan-made rec broadhead, which was devastating on a bear that I shot last fall. I'm going to try it on a turkey now. Practice, have confidence, wait for the right shot, take the high percentage shot. And I'm in love with it. I have not hunted from a tree stand like Charlie Wiltse was talking about. I probably won't. But you can bet I'll be out there in that Wraith 270 from Primal with some decoys in front of me as soon as I can in the season. Is it as easy as taking one with a shotgun? No. Can taking a bird with a shotgun be challenging? Absolutely. And I would never diminish anybody's hunting experience by deciding to go with a shotgun. But if you're looking for something more, try a bow. You just might like it. And again, thank you to the folks at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. And thank you to James Hutter for asking this week's question. After the break, more turkey hunting talk with Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors and then wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar here on Outdoor.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Treestands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network. More than 30 AM and FM stations across the great state of Michigan. And so glad to have you along with us. What a great time of year this is. You never know what the weather's going to bring, right? But what a great time of year this is. Springtime steelheading, springtime walleye fishing, springtime salmon fishing, springtime inland fishing, turkey season. Ugh. You know I love turkey hunting. I mean, it's kind of been a common theme throughout much of this week's show. I love turkey hunting. I don't pretend to be an expert. I have had some success, but nobody loves it any more than I do. I'm one of those guys that just to be out there in the morning as the world is waking up and to hear that first gobble from a bird on the roost makes it all worthwhile. It makes getting up early, it makes sitting out there in the cold, it makes it all worthwhile. And even if that bird doesn't show up in front of me, even if I never hear another gobble that morning, it's still worthwhile. I love turkey hunting. Much of what I have learned about hunting birds comes from a guy who I consider to be the most knowledgeable turkey hunter that I know. His name is a name that you know. Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors. His resume is long. 6-time Michigan turkey calling champ. Had the A-Way Outdoors television show for many years. A hunting guide for many, many years. A turkey hunting guide who specialized, who concentrated on public land hunting, the hardest hunting that there is in northern Michigan. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Greg, my friend, welcome back. How are you?
My eyes open this morning, so it's an awesome day.
Yeah, I can't argue with you there. So these days, Greg, let me ask you. I mean, so what is taking up most of your time these days? I know you have shifted your efforts a little bit. So what are you doing now?
Old man stuff. Here's what I'm doing. You may laugh at this, but I have more free time now because my father and I sold our big patents, of the products we had for many years. And I do invention consulting, of course, and help inventors in the outdoor world bring their idea before other companies or help them bring them to market. But the thing I really started taking up is rock picking and making rock jewelry out of Great Lakes rocks.
No kidding.
Yeah, I love it. I polish them, and I'm getting ready to go pretty quick here on Lake Huron and get some Petoskey stones and some pudding stones, and then to the UP for some Uperlites. But I enjoy making pendants out of them. In fact, I got them on the website now, too. But I do that, and then, of course, my other hobby is metal detecting, which I've done for many, many years because I love history. And before I went on the show this morning, I was actually in the library doing research, trying to find old places because I love digging history.
Well, that's kind of neat. And listen, I don't want to get too far off topic, but are there places here in Michigan you can do that? I know you routinely travel down south to some of the old war areas. What about here in Michigan?
In Michigan, you look more for like the ghost towns, and then every town has had a history. So if you were to get the 100-year-old history book of that town, you'll see where the old socials were, where they gathered, and you learn a lot about your own town that you had no idea about, and it's just stuff I really love. I love reading all that and finding it, especially because a lot of it's all so grown over you'd never know anything was there. And when I actually find it, that in itself is rewarding.
Oh, that's actually very cool. And it's things like that, Greg, that I think make you such an interesting and fascinating guy. Because you don't hesitate. If you find something that interests you or becomes a passion, you go after it with a gusto.
I dive in with both feet.
And I respect that. I like that. But listen, the topic at hand today is turkey hunting. Can I assume that you don't miss guiding at all?
I don't miss that. That was a chapter of my life I really enjoyed at the time, and I dove in with both feet, of course, and I did that for many, many years, and as you said, on public land, which anything I do, I really enjoy a challenge, and the public land birds are a challenge, but I've got them figured out. I got a good routine for people that hunt public land birds, and tactics that really work after a lot of trial and error and running into about every situation you can run into.
Well, let's talk more about that then. How do you have success on birds that get hammered by people on a daily basis?
If you're lucky enough to have the first hunt, you'll probably find the birds where you scouted them close to the roads in their initial roost. But they definitely have a high-pressure roost and even a foul-weather roost, and those would be different areas. When they get hammered after that first week, they go in deeper. And to find them, it's just a matter of walking the rivers and the creeks and going deeper in, because that's where they're going to be roosting. And it's just a matter of getting further than what other people are usually willing to walk, and get there before daylight in your preseason scouting or before your season comes up, and just go out there and listen. Them birds are going to gobble. They're going to tell you where the roost is, and it's just a matter of going in there and looking for the various turkey signs. But once you find the roost, and you don't want to shoot them close to the roost whatsoever, because every single year, about 90% of the time, they're going to roost there year after year after year after year. And you're going to know exactly where these roosts are, and you're going to go in there and be successful every year on public land. It's just finding the roost. As long as you don't bust them around the roost area, let them feel safe there, they're going to be there every year. And you could use your same tactics. They're going to follow the same routines they normally do. They go in a certain direction most of the time, and you're going to probably set up your whether you put up some brush pile or you tent blind or whatever, you're going to hunt the same spots every year and know the terrain and know the birds.
Well, and this is something I ask you every time we talk about turkey hunting is and this concept of the roost. So how far off from the roost do you set up in the morning then, Greg?
100 to 150 yards.
And then would if you had a bird drop in your lap right there, would you shoot him there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as you're, well away from the roost. You don't want to, you can hunt close to the roost, and when they hit the ground, you could legally shoot them. But the rest of the group who witnessed this is not going to come back.
Yep.
And you want them to come back and feel safe there every year, because during the course of the day, they're being chased by coyotes, they're being bumped by ATVs, and they're used to traffic and loud noises and being chased. As long as it's not happening at their roost where they feel safe, you're okay.
So in the scenario I laid out earlier, where you're out there before the sun comes up, you hear that first bird gobble on the roost. Do you call back to them, or do you wait till they hit the ground?
You're talking in my scouting or hunting?
Hunting.
Hunting, I don't talk to them until they do the first gobble, and I will talk to them when they're on the roost. I'll give out a tree yelp, which I'll demonstrate here. I'll put this, I got a turkey trooper with a volume control here. I'm going to put it on a low setting. Just 3 to 6 soft yelps, just to let them know that I'm over here. And before the hunt starts, and I should have said this, when you're locating the roost, try to find what trees you think he's in, but more importantly, when he hits the ground in your preseason scouting, what direction does he go when he gets off the roost? That is the most important thing, because they'll follow that routine 80% of the time. And then once you find the trail he's taking, which you'll obviously see his tracks, he'll follow the 2 tracks, or he'll follow the high ridge if there is no 2-track. But anyhow, when you do set up, you give out that tree yelp come time for your hunt, and he'll answer you, but lay the call down. You already have everything in your advantage. He already wants to go in that direction. You do not want to make the hens with him jealous, or if you call it too loud, make one of them suspicious, where if they go the opposite way, the whole group's going to follow. So lay off the calls. Call very quietly, even more quiet than what you think, because there's nothing but air in between you and that roost. There's nothing to muffle that sound. So you're going to think you're calling too soft where he's not going to hear you. So it's not the case. If it's a clear morning without a lot of wind, he's going to hear you. His hearing is 4 times better.
We'll talk more about that, Greg. First, we've got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. We're talking with Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, the website awayhunting.com, awayhunting.com. I tell you, I have talked with Greg a bunch of times, and every time we have this conversation, I learn something more, and that's why I love having him as a guest right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reeder Landscaping. Reeder can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reeder create an outdoor getaway in your backyard, as they have for me. And eventually, that backyard outdoor getaway will start to look like someplace you'd want to be out there rather than still dormant. It's coming. It's coming. The website, reederlandscaping.com, reederlandscaping.com. And if you have a project you want to get done this summer, do not hesitate. Do not wait any longer, because their schedule fills up. If you want to get it done early in the summer, get in touch with them now, reederlandscaping.com. While you're online, of course, my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And then head on over to awayhunting.com, awayhunting.com, the website of A-Way Outdoors. Greg Abbas, you know that name. You know Greg, you know his dad, Fred. They've been around the outdoor scene in Michigan for so many years. And Greg, I got to tell you, I still miss your TV show, and I get it. I know why you got out. People tell me the same thing. Avery, I miss your show. I don't, but I still miss seeing you and your dad on the TV show.
Well, appreciate it.
Life's easier without it, though, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. You know, my father and I worked so hard all them years, and the Lord blessed us. You know, my father was my best friend, and the Lord blessed us to be able to do these things all these years, for 30 years, you know, to have an outdoor lifestyle and make it into a business, which never seemed like a business. But, you know, we did the TV show for 12 years. We got to travel the country, got to go to Africa, and got to see some really neat things. But it is a lot of work. And, I enjoyed that chapter of my life, and you know, when it was done, I didn't miss it. You know, the hunting was great, but, you know, there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it, as you know, than just the hunting part. But I enjoyed it at the time.
Oh, good. When I think of your company, I mean, I think of you guys, and I realize, you know, you had the Bow Grunner Plus, but I guess this time of year, maybe that's what it is. This time of year, I think of you guys as turkey hunters and turkey calls. Make some of the best turkey calls on the market. I know you've got a call there in front of you, Greg. Can you walk us through some of the different types of calls? I mean, the sounds, what they sound like?
Sure. When a bird is in the distance, I want to do what's called cutting, and I'm going to demonstrate on our double-sided slate call here. You throw in some yelps, and he'll answer you. And as he gets closer, you want to tone it down. You know, when he reaches like 150, 200 yards, you know, I'll still fire him up, but I won't call as long, and I'll call a lot softer. When he reaches the 100-yard mark, that is your critical point. That's where you will win or lose the bird. Because a lot of us have had birds come in, you know, on a run, and until they reach that 100-yard mark or 75 yards, and they just put on the brakes and stay out there and strut. And I swear they sometimes I think they could tell how far your BBs will go from your shotgun and drop in front of their toe. They'll just stay just outside that range and gobble at you and strut. Hang up out of gun range. Common problem.
And why do they do
too much? Yeah, what too loud?
Okay.
It's going to hang up out of gun range.
So we, as a hunter, we were enjoying the interaction so much that we just kept calling too much or too loud, and that's what jammed that bird up.
Either one of them will cause him to hang up out of gun range. There's a quick, easy solution, and we used to run calling experiments at my Turkey Tech University. It used to be a full-day outdoor course that I would put on where you get to be the turkey, and you get to hear the calling from the turkey's perspective, which is an eye-opener. But we found through our studies the little simple push-button call with the volume control was the best hands-down call to close the deal if you're hunting by yourself. Because not only can you lower the volume, but you're able to be directional, all with one finger, one hand. I could throw my voice of the sound I'm making behind me, make him think I'm another further 100 yards than I really am. And he's still in close the distance mode when I've shot him. He hasn't even thought about putting on the brakes yet. And a quick experiment, if you want to try something, is get one of these calls and have someone stand from you maybe 40, 50 yards away and point the call at them, then point the call behind you, away from them. And you'll hear a big difference in that sound. That is exactly what you want to do to that turkey within 100 yards. Throw your voice behind you. Make him think he's got further to go. Make him think that hen's walked away. And he's still going to be closing the distance quick when you shoot him.
And that push-button call is such a simple, basic. You can't make a bad sound on it. You can't squawk the thing. I mean, it always sounds good.
Yeah, it does. People look at this, people that have been in the sport for a long time, and they think, well, that was good when I was a beginner. And I'm thinking, well, why is it not good now? Just because it's easy to use? That is such a valuable tool. And, I'm a professional caller. I can make any sound a hen turkey can make, but to make that nice purr, point that behind you and throw your voice, that'd be very, very difficult to do. And it's so simple to do with this push button. Anybody could. Any child can pick it up and do that.
You bring up an interesting point, though, about making the same sound as a hen. How important is calling? I mean, do we have to shoot a bird, do we have to be able to call at the level you did in these competitions?
Not at all. A turkey would not win a turkey calling contest because they make mistakes. So therefore, you can make mistakes. So just don't stop on a mistake, because you're going to get a squawk if you're doing a box call or even a slate call. You're going to get excited. Just don't stop on it. Just keep playing through it. It's more important to get your rhythm correct and know what to say when.
I've had hens talking and walk in on me, and I swore it was going to be another beginning hunter who didn't know how to call because it sounded so bad. And I look up, and there's a hen walking in front of me. She was the one making those bad sounds.
I ran into that, too, in my early days in the early 80s, and I was the only one that had permission for this property, and I heard the worst calling in my life, so I get up to go see who's there, and I walk over there, and I scared a whole flock of turkeys away. I learned my lesson.
Oh, what is it, Greg, about turkey hunting, though, that has excited you over so many years?
Oh, God, even now, it's not that I want to shoot them now, but, call them in for other people, family members. It's that interaction. I mean, you've been sitting around all winter with nothing to do. You're itching to get outside and get out hunting, but in my mind, there's very few animals and birds that you hunt that have so much interaction to the calling. And you're able to tell him through a yelp that I love you, and to have him answer you and say I love you back, and to come in and then your mind's constantly thinking strategy. Should I call now? Should I not call? Which call should I use? Should I be softer now? It's a thinking person's game for sure, and each bird's a little different too. What worked on one bird may not work this time, so therefore you try to figure out this bird while he's off in the distance. You know, if he's being more quiet, then you be more quiet. If he's vocal, you could be vocal.
So in answer to the question, should I call now or not, the safe answer is usually no, right?
Right. Yep. He knows where you're at. Less calling is better calling in most cases, because it goes back to if you call too much or you call too loud, he'll hang up. He'll hang up out of gun range. He'll think that hen is coming to me, or if you're too loud. With his hearing being 4 times better, he's thinking that hen should be right in front of me, and I don't see her. Because do the math. You know, if that bird's out there 100 yards or so, and he has 4 times better hearing than yours, let's say he's at 80 yards. He's got 4 times better hearing than you. You should be calling no louder than to reach a person at 20 yards. His hearing is 4 times better. So if you're calling to reach a human at the 80 yards he's at, you're shouting at him.
Yeah, when you say that, it makes sense, but doggone it, Greg, it's so much fun.
It is. I mean, who doesn't want to keep calling? That's why I love calling to Jakes. They're the funnest of all of them. They're excited as you are.
Yes, and is there, you get to it, quit stumbling here and try to get this thought out. A lot of turkey hunters get to a point where they no longer want to shoot a jake. They want to hold out for a big bird, a long beard. But I don't think there's any shame for a beginning hunter, especially in shooting a jake. Do you?
Oh, not at all. I mean, your success rate turkey hunting, period, is about 33%. And to get any bird is a great accomplishment. And just like deer hunting, you know, after you shoot some smaller bucks, you know, if you decide later in life that, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy the outdoors and I want a bigger buck, and if I don't get them, I'm not going to shoot. And, you know, if you do get them, you know, it's a personal choice. And, you know, I understand the part of not wanting to shoot a jake, you know, once you've shot some and you want that bigger gobbler. It's just personal choice at that point, but there's no shame either way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Listen, Greg, if you've got a few more minutes, I'd like to ask you to stick around for the coveted third, because I want to talk more about your invention consulting side of your business, if you can stay with me.
Sure.
Yeah, this is a topic that whenever I have Greg on, I get great response, because people come to me, and I don't know why. People come to me and say, hey, Avery, you've been around the outdoor business for a while. How do I launch this new product or whatever? I don't know. I've never done it. I don't have any experience. I don't have any clue of how to do it. But I always send those people to Greg Abbas, because he has also been around the outdoor industry for a long time, but he has much experience launching new products, bringing products to market, and now more recently, helping others do the same. His outdoor invention consulting business, I think, is fascinating. One more very interesting aspect of a very interesting guy. The website, awayhunting.com. That's awayhunting.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, wrap up our conversation with Greg Abbas. And then you know that we will wrap up the show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar. Now, we've done so much turkey talking turkey this hour, this week, you'd think he would have a turkey recipe, but I have a feeling it's going to be fish. But it will be good, I can promise you that. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM 95.3 FM. And you can hear us downstate. Oh, you can also hear us, downstate in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. And further downstate in Saginaw on WSGW 790 AM 100.5 FM. I'm in the studios of WSGW right now for this 3 hours. It's this corner of the building is called the Outdoor Magazine Studio. I'm here with Charlie Root. The crowd outside right now is down a little bit because of the weather. Now, we normally get people just standing, screaming, Charlie, Charlie. They got signs, and they want to get his autograph and get a picture taken with him. And he will let you take a picture with him, by the way. He'll charge you $5 for it, though. But the crowd is down a little bit. Charlie, they love you, and I love you too. I appreciate what you're doing for us. Thank you very much. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, AR-style, highly accurate, tough, and dependable hunting rifles that could change the way you hunt. They're made in Lansing, just down the road from the governor's office. I think that part is cool as well. Check them out online at BrentonUSA.com. That's BrentonUSA.com. A new partner for us here on the Outdoor Magazine Show, and I'm really excited about this relationship. Great people, great product, made in Michigan. BrentonUSA.com. Another great Michigan guy, Greg Abbas of Away Outdoors. AwayHunting.com is the website. And Greg, how did you get into this side of your career that you're doing now with the Invention Consulting?
Well, I had the relationships through all the years, with our fellow manufacturers, and my father and I were inventors since the 1980s of our own products, and I'd always have a lot of people coming up to me, as they do you, and say, hey, I got this idea, how do I get started? And once we sold our patents, it was just a natural, or even before that, I started doing this business, helping inventors from around the country. And there are so many ways to go off the road, so to speak, and throw away money. I want to make sure that they do it right and they do it as cost effective as possible, and just spend money when you need to spend money, not just throw it away blindly. I saved a guy from throwing away $50,000 yesterday.
Oh.
Guys are willing to do that because they believe in their idea, and I say, whoa. Put on the brakes a little. Let's do this first. Let it prove itself first. Take just a little time, Make sure, you don't go in debt. We made those same mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes we did way back when. So I'm able to give them good guidance, and then most of them want to work deals with companies for a licensing agreement, and I help them throughout the whole process. It's a easy process, and it's not terribly expensive.
Is that the way to go for the most part, the licensing deal? Does that make the most sense for most people?
Yes. It's the least costly, and if you get a company that has really good distribution throughout the country and a good brand name, you could do really well off of that.
Will that company then, and this is none of my business, tell me, but will that company then pay you a piece of every product they sell, or do they give you one payment up front and you're done with it?
No, you. Typically, a licensing agreement is they'll give you a percentage off of each piece they sell. And a lot of inventors want to sell right from the get-go, but it's not always in their best interest to do so. If you let a company run with it for 2 or 3 years and they're generating good profits, you are worth a whole lot more money if you decide to cash out a couple of years down the road after you're receiving licensing money.
I see. And these are the types of subtleties and nuances that, the average person who loves the outdoors, who thinks they've come up with the next, best thing in the outdoors, you wouldn't necessarily know this unless you had a background in business, and specifically your type of a background, Greg.
Well, in doing these deals, yeah. Most people think they have the thought in the head, they want to tell you about it and sell it. Nobody's going to pay you for the thought in the head. You got to at least have some kind of patent pending status to at least approach companies. And there's cheap ways to go about that without you having to mortgage the farm, to do so. When
somebody comes to you with an idea, can you tell pretty much right off the bat if it's going to go or not?
No, you can't, because honestly, and there's not an inventor that doesn't ask me, what do you think? I could tell them if I like it or not, but obviously with the hundreds of these I've done, there's some I fall in love with, some that I don't, and sometimes it's the ones that I don't fall in love with. You get companies fighting over it. It only takes one product manager or company president to like an item, and you're off and running. But you can't make that call for someone. Only that person you're trying to sell it to can make that call.
And if Joe Blow on the street, maybe the nicest guy in the world, approaches these companies, he's not as good. He's likely not to have as much luck getting in the door as an established name as Greg Abbas.
Where I really have the advantage is the contacts, from being in the industry for 30 years. So I don't have to, in most cases, I don't have to go through a gatekeeper.
Yep.
And I know what these guys are looking for, these product managers and company presidents. I was one of them for 30 years. So it doesn't take much. Everybody wants to brag about their invention, and it's their baby. And I understand it, and they want to give so much information, but you also have to understand you're dealing with very busy people on the other end. And I will get it in front of their nose, and I will get the proper thing in front of their nose. There's 1,001 ways to blow a deal, and it's a very narrow path to get it right.
See, that mindset alone is worth working with Greg Abbas. Greg, always a pleasure. Good luck, my friend. We'll talk again soon. Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, the website awayhunting.com, awayhunting.com. From one great guy to another, wild game chef Dave Minar coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. Pretty fast 3 hours, Charlie. Yeah. This is a 3-hour show, and I consider myself blessed to be able to do something that I love, talking about the outdoors. So the shows usually go by pretty fast. I mean, think about it. If you could just sit and talk about the outdoors for 3 hours, how much fun it would be. But occasionally we'll get a show that just seems to fly by, and this one was one of those. If you've been with me before, you know that I love to wrap up each week's show with wild game chef extraordinaire Dave Minar, who is a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, a great friend of mine, and just a great guy. And he's with us once again. David, welcome back. How are you?
Pretty good, Mike. Thanks for the compliments.
Listen, it's easy to compliment you because you've got the chops, you've got the expertise, you've got the history. I mean, you're the real deal.
Thank you very much. Wow. How was your weather today?
Well, I don't even want to talk about weather. We'll leave it at that. I don't even want to talk about weather.
Okay.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah. Same here.
Hey, Dave, much of the show this week we've been talking about turkey hunting. And I think maybe by next week, let's do a turkey recipe. But I think you've got a fish this time around, don't you?
I do. You know the smoked salmon spread that we always serve at your wild game day?
Yes.
A lot of people ask me how to do that and, the actual recipe. So I've had it printed up to give out.
Perfect.
Anyways, it's you need about a pound and a quarter of boneless, skinless, crumbled smoked salmon, or just any kind of fish you really prefer, but I like smoked salmon. It's got a lot of flavor to it. So 2 pounds of cream cheese softened, kind of almost like the room temperature, about a quarter cup of sour cream, 1 bunch of onions, sliced real thin and chopped up a lot so that it's real fine. You need a small onion, grated very fine, or you could grind it even, And then we need about 2 tablespoons of horseradish, more or less to your taste. Maybe start off with a small amount, and when it's all done, then you can add more if you so like it, a little bit more zippy. A couple of 2-3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Maybe a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley. And I like to spice this up just a tad with some Tabasco or whatever kind of hot sauce you prefer, whatever you have at your house. And you can add more or less. Start off with a little bit and add more as, you get this done and you can taste it actually. Try it on a cracker or a garlic toast or something. Anyway, about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic ground up real fine. You don't want a big chunk of garlic when you're going to be eating this, so you want to get it real nice and fine. Juice of a lime or 2. Start with 1 and then move into it as you go along. And then And you're going to need some dry breadcrumbs. This is going to help tighten up that sauce or that spread, so that because the sour cream and some of that stuff is going to cast off some liquid. So in a chilled mixing bowl, add your sour cream and cream cheese and mix it for just a little minute or so to get all mixed up. And then you can add all the other ingredients at the same time for the breadcrumbs. Whip it for like a minute or so, and then taste it. Put a little bit, like a half a teaspoon or so, on a cracker or something. See if that's the flavor. Now, the best flavor is going to actually be enhanced after you refrigerate this overnight. And it freezes well up to a couple of weeks anyway. You could make a bigger batch and then, use it for dinner parties and just sitting around snacking. It's great. I love it.
It sounds great. I know it tastes great. And Dave, I feel like you're either walking into or out of the restaurant.
No, the ice is blowing off the car.
Oh, that's what it is. Oh, okay. Okay.
I guess we should have been stopped. But
No, don't worry about it. But listen, speaking of the restaurant, you guys are open Thursdays through Sunday now, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Where do
we can get some more help?
Well,
anybody out there, come on down.
Yeah, that's a common theme. Where do we find you, David?
Well, we're at Oscar and Joey's Roadhouse on the corner of Birch Run Road, Dixie Highway, right there in the corner. And then, whoops, more ice.
Man, I'm glad I'm not behind you right now.
Oh, everybody's having the same problem. You can see them on the road.
All right, listen, David. I'm gonna let you go. We'll talk again next week. Let's do a turkey recipe next week.
Absolutely.
All right, Wild Game Chef Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you, and I truly mean that. If you weren't listening to the radio show or the podcast or following my online, posts and such, this wouldn't work. And then I would be heartbroken, actually, because God willing, and as long as I'm still healthy and can put, a few words together in my mind, I'm going to be doing this for a while yet. At least that's the plan. And I couldn't do it, honestly, without you. So thanks for listening. I would encourage you to check out the website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And do not hesitate to reach out to me in an email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Questions, comments, criticisms, suggestions. Ask Avery segment suggestions, you name it. You can reach me, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My name is Mike Avery, and I will talk with you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine.